Two. Hello, hello, dear all. Hello, dear all. English Without Border welcomes all of you to our series of English Without Borders Thursday webinars. And right now at 6 p.m. Tajikistan time, lots of our followers are joining us via Facebook and Zoom. And today we are hosting Dr. Fatima Aldajani, who will talk about how can you become more international about culturally responsive in teaching. So Dr. Fatima Aldajani is an experienced educator and professional trainer with a master's degree in educational leadership and a doctoral degree in curriculum and instruction. She specializes in working with second language learners and has taught at various grade and college levels. She serves as an ESL adjunct instructor at American Language Institute, University of Toledo, and a professional ESL trainer at different school districts. So let's welcome Dr. Fatima Aldajani. Thank you very much. Now the floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Nora. And hello, everyone. Let me first share my slides. Okay. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining my webinar. And I'm here today to talk to you about how can you be more intentional about culture responsive teaching. Let me give you a little bit of background. So over the past 10 years, I worked as an educator and a trainer coach to embrace diversity and inclusion in my workplace. And my colleagues and I have spent some time looking at and working through different activities to become more culturally responsive to our students and our curriculum. And what I hope to be able to provide you in some context, but also some ideas that you can take into your classroom. So the first thing, let's move this up here. I want you to start with is asking you a question. What does culturally responsive teaching means to you? So if you can drop in the chat describing what does culture responsive teaching means to you in like 1 or 2 words. I'm just trying to get you guys engaged from the beginning. So we'll give like a few seconds if people want to share their thoughts or ideas. Using student culture for better instructions. Yes, that's a good one. Understanding students' background. Great, I like that one also. Hardworking. To teach student not only the language, but its culture, behavior, and teach to be tolerant and respectful. That's a good one as well. Culture relevant classroom, being relevant, yes. Okay, so all these answers are really good and they are under the umbrella of what does culture responsive teaching mean? And we're gonna talk more about this in this presentation. So, okay. So actually, culture responsive teaching is recognizing the importance of including student culture, which is some of your answers we're talking about this, references in all aspects of learning. And it's actually embracing our students in the forefront rather than our content. So what we think about is our students and have them become actively engaged in the content that we are presenting. And we think about students as a whole person. What do they bring? And then our decision-making process is based around that particular student or group of students and so forth. So it's like between us as teachers, how we prepare materials and instructions to meet the students' needs based on their backgrounds and need. And then the second word that I want you to share with me, what might comes to your mind and what does it mean, is what does intentionally mean? And I want you to think a little bit about this word in the context that we're talking about. So I would give you some, also like a minute or so to drop some meaning for intentionally in the chat. Clear goals, understanding the purpose. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on. Oh, will to do something special. Good ideas. Okay, let me. Okay, I moved so fast. So when we think about intentionally, we need to think about the why and the how of our teaching. Are we thinking about the materials that we're choosing, the language that we're using, and the documents that we are providing, the videos? Are we thinking about our students as active participants in the learning process? Are we thinking about our assessments, the participants in the learning process? And are we thinking about the way that we instruct our students? And this is one of the things that you mentioned in the chat. Those are the things that I would like you to think about, is to be deliberate and intentional about each day. And I really mean every single day. So when I'm selecting materials and activities, I am deliberate and I am intentionally making sure that I am meeting my student needs. Now, the third term that we need to make sure that we understand is students' fund of knowledge. And I know that many people don't talk about this in education. But for me, I came across this term because I am an English second language teacher. And fund of knowledge are basically thinking about the students coming to class with funds of information that they have gained from their lifelong experience. So I know every one of us at some point, they saw a student for the first time. And you might say to yourself when you saw that students coming into your classroom, I wonder if they know anything. And then, in fact, they do, because funds of knowledge begin on day one in our life. And we start to learn about our family, our tradition, our school, our education system, and the other experience that we have within our life that our friends and our family introduce it to us. And all of this come together to a lived experience, which we call in education a fund of knowledge. And it is really important that we embrace that as encompassing. So we're starting off with a definition of culture responsive teaching, intentionally, and the funds of knowledge. So keeping these three terms in mind throughout this webinar, because this is the base of understanding what does culture responsive teaching mean in a classroom. So in the next part, I would like you to understand that there are some core elements to culture responsive teaching. And the first element that I would like to introduce and discuss is the ability to activate prior knowledge. This is key for our students to be able to embrace the content. So I often say to teachers is that our students don't come to our class thinking about the same thing we are thinking about. I have my own perspective, they have their perspective. So I have to keep that in mind. So if I'm teaching or we are teaching, and this is always my go-to example, if you're teaching, let's say photosynthesis, you need to make sure that you start with getting their minds wrapped around photosynthesis for the day, right? So because these students don't wake up in the morning and say, oh, wow, I can't wait to learn about photosynthesis this morning. But when they get to class, our job is to start to do just a small activity that's going to get them embraced into this concept. So it could be things like an anticipation guide, which is a technique where there are several questions and the students have to respond to them, whether they agree or disagree. And then they could take, talk about those questions. And also they can turn to a partner. And this works well in a large classroom. If you have a large number of a classroom and you want them to get engaged, then you ask them to turn to a partner and talk about the questions that you have asked them to just get them engaged in the topic that you're teaching on that day. Also, another technique is could be a Kahoot, using Kahoot or a Padlet. These are quick techniques and platform technology. It's fun. Students can get quickly engaged, and there is a lot of options with Kahoot. It's a game, so they enjoy playing a game just to learn the vocab or the content that they're learning that day. And with Padlet, they can post their answers, comments, and response using visuals or videos. And what I like about Padlet and Kahoot, that it's anonymous, which means that you don't know who is the student who posts or get the right answer or not. And this will help the students to feel confident that they are not embarrassed or feel shy that their answer might get wrong. So I like these two platforms because it really encourages the students, all the students, no matter what's their level is, to engage in the classroom. The next core element is we know that our brain needs to be ready to learn, and we can start to make and we have to remember, we all come from a different places and different lived experience. So again, they may not be ready to absorb the materials, but we can do to help them is to make these connections. And there are things that many of you probably do, but we have to be intentional. So using some materials such as graphic organizers, different ways of showing the materials, short videos, and something to help them to make these connections with the material that we're teaching them. Also, we have to make sure that our class design is one of the most important core element of being a culture responsive teacher. And this has to do not only with our physical class design, like what the furniture were in the classroom, but also the routine of our classroom. So class design can be physical, and it's the setting up of our classroom. And we have to make sure that it's in a way that students can be work in groups and collaborate with each other. And they are, it's easy to share the knowledge and the learning experience in a community, as a community. So if we are unable and you have a very large classroom and you cannot physically move things around, what can you do? And can they get up and join a small group and stand and talk about something for just a few minutes and then they can come back? That's part of the classroom design. And the other part is actual instruction piece. The one I talked about is the routine of the classroom. the design of the instructions. And I personally don't lecture for a long period of time. And that's why this is a 30 minutes presentation, because we have these small attention spans that we want to jump on and go to do something else. And with younger age or students, it's 10 to 15 minutes, and then they jump to do something else. And students are similar to us as adults. So usually I lecture for about 15 minutes, and then I do an activity based on what I have shared with my students. And then I do another 15 minutes lecture and so on. And sometimes my classes are 2 hours long. So I split them into 30 minutes or 40 minutes for each topic, where I can engage my students every half minute or so. And that classroom design helps promote that conversation and promotes that community of learners. Another core element is to build the relationship. So some people have a different distance, which means comfortness. And with our students, some instructors are very close to their students. And we have those group of people who go by their first name, and they have that closeness with their students. Personally, I usually go by telling my students, my name is Dr. Fatima. That's how I introduce myself. But then I would tell them, you can go by my first name or my last name. Here in the United States, people usually go with their last name. Where I come from in the Middle East, we go with first name. So I would give that option to my students, whether they want to call me Dr. Fatima or Dr. Aldajani. And I try to engage with the students at a comfortable distance for me, but also I don't keep them at like arm length, because they know that they can always come and talk to me and ask for help. And I stay after class usually for a few minutes. I also try to arrive a little bit earlier. I engage with whoever in the class. And I might just say something like, how was your day yesterday? What did you do after classes yesterday? And then I might ask him also about like, what's their favorite soccer team? So I try to engage with different types of their interest so that they know I care about them. And we know that building relationship changed the dynamic of the classroom. We know that this helped them. What we have to make this intentional effort to go out of our way to know a little bit more about each of our students. And even in large classrooms, make it an intentional effort to reach out to different ones each time you are there. Just ask them questions, ask them how they are doing, how the semester is going. Just a quick questions change the dynamic in the classroom and really make it where students feel comfortable and students feel like they can reach out to you, and that's going to change the learning context. And the final core element that I would like to discuss is leveraging cultural capital. And this is where that responsive teaching really comes in. Where do our students come from? Connect that back to what I mentioned earlier about the funds of knowledge. Funds of knowledge are their lived experience. So how can I bring their lived experience into this classroom? How can I get them to share their lived experiences? And how can I get them to go beyond the content to the worthiness of what I'm teaching them? So we need to know our students to do that, right? And we kind of have to look at our content and students to try to make that all this work together. So connections, prior knowledge, student knowledge, their lived experience, cultural capital, and getting to know these students are all the core elements of culture responsive teaching. So let's say that at this point I have your you buy in, and I'm getting your attention, and you're engaged. But if I didn't, let me tell you some of the benefits of the culture responsive teaching. And first of all, your students' engagement is going to go way up. The students are going to be interested in your content, and they are going to be interested in you and what you have to say. It also promotes equity in your classroom, which is really important. And no one is going to feel that their voices is not heard. and that you're being dismissive of them. And another benefit of culture responsive teaching is the students' engagement in your actual materials. So if the materials are matched better to them, then the students will really connect to it and engage in a better way. And finally, one of the best benefits in culture responsive teaching leads to critical thinking. And I am sure you heard about that. It is how can we get them to think critically as they move forward in their lives and in their endeavors in their careers. So now let's do some check-in. What I'm going to ask you to do now is actually spend 1 minute, and I'm going to put a timer in your mind. If you would like to share it on the chat, that's fine. If not, then write it on a piece of paper or use your phone or just keep it in your mind. I want you to actually go back and think about your own biases and your own personal beliefs in the classroom. And you probably have done this before, but before you embrace culture responsive teaching, you really need to do this again, and again, because it's a long-term process and it's an ongoing journey. So let's spend some time trying to answer these two questions. What are your experience and fundamental knowledge, and how do they influence the way you teach your classes? And I'm going to put 1 minute for myself and you guys, and then whoever wants to share their experience, or just keep it to yourself, and then I'll share mine. Okay, anybody likes to share?
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, I would like to say just a few words about maybe my teaching experience. I think before joining English Without Borders Thursday webinars, I actually thought that I know a lot of things about teaching and methodology, and I know a lot. But actually, when I started attending sessions and conferences with English Without Borders team, I think I've learned a lot more. And every time I'm actually surprised that there's so many, many more things that I actually didn't know before. And I'm still, that actually inspires me a lot. And of course, while learning this knowledge and experience, I implement it in my class. And it affects my students a lot, and I see and I feel it every time when I use something new. They enjoy, and they enjoy more, and it actually have more positive effect also in my class. And I see that students are coming to the lesson with more motivation than actually before. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing your experience and reflection. I really appreciate it because, as you said, it's really important that to recognize that there's always something that we are not aware about. And the more we educate ourselves as teachers, the more we are aware about our own beliefs and biases and how we can really intentionally meet our student needs. And then we have another person who shared, I had a presentation last Saturday, and as I am pretty good in digital stuff, I was expecting the same from others, and my commands were sometimes not really clear to some people. Yeah, and a lot of time, I have the same experience as well, that we think that people knows what we know, and we expect that they can use the tools that we have been using, but it's not the way that we think. There's a lot of people who doesn't have the same knowledge and perspective that we have. So thanks everyone.
Hello.
Yes, yeah, we have another one.
Hello.
Hello.
I hope everything is fine. Everybody's listening to what I'm saying. So hi everybody, dear participants. This is Pierre Nazar. I wanna just share my experience with you guys. This is my second time, I guess third time. First time I was talking on Friday last time, and then I met you guys in American space. Very happy on that day. So now coming to the question, and as far as this question is concerned, first talk about the experience and fund of knowledge. So let me share something about my experience, and then the second question I'll respond. So my experience starts from 2017, which I couldn't speak English, and I didn't know anything about it. And 2017, after I was studying at university, I was studying international relations. That's why I knew that this is very important for me to know about the world, about the culture, about these things, and so politics and stuff. That's why I started learning of it in learning centers, and I made the plan and goal, and finally I got IELTS last year, which is the highest thing for English language, especially like one of the part and one of the highest thing which I put goal, and I got it. So yeah, this is what the experience was, and I don't want to just talk a lot about these things, but maybe just another time for now, maybe another time. But the second question is, how does they influence now as far as right now is concerned? I'm teaching now at school at Lyceum. I'm teaching English at Lyceum, students, elementary school, elementary students, and also I was teaching IELTS and things. And as I said earlier in that place, and also I'm saying right now, it's the important thing is we have to just use the language not only inside the classroom but outside, and also to communicate and to just talk and to have fun, and no matter which places, no matter how our environment is, and we have to focus on ourselves, and as far as we know, that's important and beneficial for us, and we have to just promote and continue learning and studying every day. And this is my thinking, and these are my thoughts. Thank you very much.
Thanks you so much for sharing. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So I love when people get engaged and they like to share their experiences, because a lot of time people hearing other people sharing their experiences will also widen your own self-awareness about, or maybe they share the same experience that you have shared in the past. So let's go back to the example that I mentioned when you first saw students come into your classroom, and for a moment you thought that they know nothing, or you make a judgment about them. Well, actually they do know something, and that is something that we call it's a bias statement. And we have other biases that we need to be kind of consider when we are embracing culture responsive teaching in our classroom. So once we have kind of embraced our own biases, then we have a clearer sense as to where to go intentionally. And again, this is a long life journey. It will never, and you have always to keep reflecting on your own actions every single day. And I have mentioned that also at the beginning. So it's not only just once.
Yeah, I do agree. I do agree with this, because nowadays I think it's very important, especially for like youngsters and those who are teaching like for their first year and maybe second year. These are very important things, and this suggestion and these things that you are mentioning. So I think they're gonna help them. Even just I was in that situation, I do feel and I understand that thing, and still like I have to learn many things. So, and yeah, there are a lot of things to learn. There are a lot of students, like come in the classroom, different background, different things, and some may understand, some had been abroad and some haven't been abroad, and some just even like came from like other background from the village, from the city, and from many places. We have to just, I guess, know these things, and we have to have these things to get prepared and to be prepared for them, and to teach them some in a way that it's interesting for them. I guess this is a very important thing. Yeah, I agree with this.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and experiences.
Thank you.
Let's move on to the next thing that we're going to talk about, which is universal design for learning. And I know some of you might heard about this UDL on a lot of document or have read about it. But one of the things with the UDL is to help inclusive practices. So the first I would like to mention to you is your syllabus. And this is, I know it's at university level, we call it syllabus. And if you're teaching in a school system from K to 12, you can think about it as your learning plan for the year. Or so you give your students like an introduction or a document that tells them what units you're going to cover and what are the resources that they can, where they can find them, where they can find help and support if they need, and so on. And with this is, I'm talking about this because it's really important that the tone you are using in your syllabus, it makes a big difference how the students are going to approach in your classroom. And that's the first impression they get when they get to know you, or the class that you will be teaching, or the content that you're teaching. So it's a tone where you just going to do things and hand them in on time. Are you personally using your syllabus as a way to open a two-way communication between you and your student? Are you considering a different type of language and tone in this introduction or the first class that you're introducing yourself and your content materials to your students? So first of all, if you write it with we are going to do something and we are learning, or we will be doing this and this, then that changes the tone. And it sets an idea of a community of learners, which is really important. Then rather, I'm going to import knowledge on you, or you are going to do something to prove that you know it. So using the plural, which is we, that means you as a teacher and your students are on the same boat, and you're working together, you're collaborating, you care about each other, you're in a one community. You're not like the boss and they are have to follow your orders. And this really makes a big difference how your students going to approach your attitude with them from the first moment. So what other types of language can be? And do you have a diversity statement in your syllabus or your introduction first day? Are you a community of learners? And one other thing that you can provide with the students is a way of how they can succeed. Usually in my online classes, what I do is I ask my students, or I tell them in the syllabus how to be successful. So I explain to them what I am expecting from them, or how they can become successful learners. So I'm providing them with the tools and resources to become successful. And one of the things I say is to be successful is to better engage every day than to try to do all of the work last minute. That is helping them. That is inclusive. That's helping them say, oh, all right, I'll do better if I do this, if I do my homework or my assignments in a way how my teacher explained it to me. So make sure always you are clear with what you are expecting from your students to do, and your instructions are clear and easy to understand. They might not do it the way or you explain it, but they already have the knowledge what you really want from them. And it's really helping them to understand the inclusiveness of the practices that you are trying to implement in the classroom to help them succeed, and to show them the roadmap on how to succeed. That statement also let them know that you care about their success. And the tone of that is very important. So the way you introduce this way of how to become successful, it really makes a big difference. And syllabus can be one of the key things that is entirely where we can be culturally responsive. And another section of the UDL, when we are talking about instructional pieces. So one thing you have to be conscious of our language and our instructions. I will give you an example. So once when I used to teach at the high school, there was a teacher who shared with me her story. And she told me that she used to have a girl who wear a hijab every day to school. And that was part of her culture. And one day she came in and she no longer had it on. And that teacher was very curious. And she mentioned to that student how beautiful she looked. And then the day went on and the student went to lunch. And suddenly that teacher said, it dawned on her like a brick hitting her in the head, that she acknowledged the student's beauty the day she looked more like American people. But she did not acknowledge her beauty the day before when she was wearing her hijab. So that teacher spent some time going back and speaking with that student. And this is why our language is important. And sometimes we do it wrong, although she didn't mean to tell her that hijab makes you ugly. But without thinking, her first reaction was to use a language that actually it means that hijab makes you ugly, and without hijab, you're more beautiful. But we have to be conscious and intentional of the language that we use. And that leads us to our instructions and the delivery of our instructions. And one thing that's really important about to think about when we deliver our instructions is resources and materials, our assessments, how we give feedback and accommodations. And let me spend some time explaining each one a little bit. So what is our delivery? Is it meeting all students? In education, we spend a lot of time learning about learning styles, and that's a great way to get students to get engaged right from the start. And doing a quick learning style survey and know what our students and how they best learn is really a good idea. But one thing that is easy to do is present it in multiple formats. So if I'm giving a lecture, I might have a video explaining the concept. I may have a supplementary text that is a little easier to read than a textbook, and kind of give them that type of thing so that they have multiple entry points and they can decipher the material from my spoken word, from the textbook, from another source, from a video or so forth. So by the time they get around to this, there was one modality for them. Or if they are English language learners or students who struggle, they have 4 modalities to actually go through to get that concept. So can we offer multiple entry points, multiple ways of getting the instructions? This is questions that we have to ask ourselves. What do our materials look like? And we need to make sure that they are not biased. This is really important. And that they are inclusive in nature. So everyone is included. So we need to be intentionally about that. And again, I'm connecting everything to what does intentionally mean to be culture responsive teaching. And the last thing that I would like to talk about delivery is assessment. We have to look if you are using publisher produced assessment. Don't assume that those assessments are without bias. They are probably created for the American educated learner. And this is something a lot of educators, international educators are not aware about, that most of the assessments that are made for the American culture students. And that's maybe we need to start thinking about creating our own assessment to assess our students based on what culture or country they are living in or they came from. And so, yes, it has the same format that our United States students are accustomed to it, but not the format that other individuals are. So look at those. Can we make that difference? Can the students show us they're learning in a different way? I had a colleague who was teaching and she decided that she had so many art students in her class. So one of the options she gave them was to do an art project based on their knowledge, and instead of, and this was like a psychology class, and instead of a test or an essay, can the students come up with an idea? So choice is part of this. Choice is part of that responsive teaching I sometimes have on my online classes. I have my goals for the model, and I will, at that last assessment, ask the students to come up with a way to prove that they have learned the objectives that I mentioned in my syllabus at the beginning of the semester or the year. So it's open-ended, and they can do it in a way that they can show how creative they are and how did they understand the materials, but in a different way. And sometimes they will just narrate a PowerPoint or write. What I have been using lately is using digital storytelling, where they choose a chapter that we have learned and then connect it to their own experience and then record themselves or take a video telling a story about that concept that they have learned and how it's related to their own culture and experience. And that's their final project. So they don't have to write an essay or take an assessment. There is a lot of different choices, and some make a pamphlet also. They can also do virtually, like I mentioned, the digital storytelling. And that's what showed how they learned the material that I have been teaching them for a semester or so. And there's also a few other things about the UDL that help us to be more responsive, and that is our feedback. Feedback is really, really, really important. And a lot of educators don't know how to give the right feedback, right positive feedback, to make their students more motivated and learn from their mistakes to become a better learners. First of all, feedback cannot be after weeks later. It has to be immediate or instant. That doesn't help the student if you do it later. It doesn't help them to grow. And they have already handed in, like, let's say 3 more assignments before you get them your first feedback. So now, whatever error they have been doing it in the next 3 assignments they have submitted. So feedback needs to be timely, and that is hard for us as teachers because there is a lot of things on our plate. But it has to be specific, and it has to be in a growth model. So we show their success, and this is how you can grow. That's why my message to my student when I give them a feedback, this is how you can do better the next time. If you embrace the growth model rather than the corrective model, and this is really important when you give feedback, you are going to be more responsive. So how can the students grow from the next time? How can they integrate things for the next time? And if a student has a question about the feedback, then we should take that as an opportunity to get to know the student. And we need to understand where their weaknesses is and help them along to overcome these weaknesses and become more strong. And the last thing is one of the things that's really important about UDL when we talk about accommodations. And all of us in our schools, we have a center for accommodations, or we have like some services for accommodations. And oftentimes what we do is just send the students there and hope for the best. And this is really important that we know what type of services or accommodations our school or our campus really provide or is available to our students' needs. And so if a student needs writing, we can say, oh, you can go to the writing center or the writing lab. And if they need help in math, usually in schools, I know they have math labs. And at the university level, they might have like a certain tutoring time for math, different type of math classes, like calculus and algebra. And they usually open for a certain time. And we have to make sure that we know what type of accommodation and where they can go and find them. And that is how you are helping them to find their resources to become successful. And we're helping them to become successful students. Okay, now let's talk about collaboration and how collaboration fits well into culture responsive model. If we look at a social culture theory, the theory usually suggests that we learn best through engagement and talking about learning. And collaboration is one of these techniques. So what are some of the questions that we need to ask ourselves to make sure that we are embracing collaboration in our classroom to become more culture responsive? Can we do things that will promote conversation? Can students discuss a scenario? Can they do think, pair, share? Can they do something called jigsaw, where they each read a component and then share it with other students? Can we set up problem solving for them and other activities? So what we want is we want our students to be active rather than passive, because usually when we do a lecture, students are always the passive. And right this very moment, unfortunately, we are passive. Like right now, because I'm the one who's talking and people are listening, this is how it's passive. So how can I make it more engaging? And I'm trying to get you to be active and intentional when I ask you to reply on the chat or unmute yourself and share your experience. So that is active. And this is what we really want our classroom to look like. But we need to have that purposeful moment that we create for the students to collaborate. And this is essential, and it won't happen if you don't have the intention to do it on a daily basis. So we can do this through questioning. We can do also reflecting like we did today. Sometimes in my classroom, what I have students to do is before they leave, they have to reflect on education. We call it exit ticket. They have to do something before they leave. They have to write one thing they learned, or sometimes I might ask them one thing you didn't like, one thing that you still don't understand. And then I collect these exit tickets so I can prepare accordingly my lesson plan for the next day. So in this way, we are active, we are collaborative. And then the following day, what I do is I share some of these thoughts without mentioning any student name, because even the exit ticket, I ask them not to write a name. I just collect notes and information so I can prepare my plans. And that act is activating like the prior knowledge, as I mentioned earlier today. So some of these ideas can come together, what you already do, and hopefully you have gained a few suggestions that you can incorporate into your classroom. And the next slide I have here, these are some of the examples that you might use as a collaborative activities: the problem-based learning, spark conversations, jigsaw activity, think, pair, share, questioning, and reflection with the exit ticket. This is another strategy list, how you can activate prior knowledge. And these are some of the examples: the QWL, a graphic organizer, anticipation guide, visual organizers, and quick write what I learned last class. We have also the content engagement, use students' interest, collaborate activities, sharing opportunities, reflective assignments, opportunities for moving around in the classroom if the space allow you, scaffold your techniques, questioning techniques, not always yes, no question, universal design for learning strategies. So this slide is like a summary for most of the techniques that you can take and use in your classroom. And this is also like a self-reflection worksheet for educators and teachers. In my opinion, as a teacher, you have at least once a month to look through this survey and try to answer the questions and reflect on yourself to make sure that you are going through this journey on an ongoing process, and you always re-examine your own biases and your own beliefs and instructions. Are you meeting the student needs? So this is a good tool as well. And as we wrap up, it's really important to consider these advices that I provided you in the last 3 slides, because this will help you keep on top of being intentionally culturally responsive. And thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you learned a few things that you can take into your classroom. And I welcome any questions or comments or anything that you would like to share. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, dear audience, please, if you have any questions, you can write in the chat box, please, or you can unmute yourself and ask the question. So there is a question from Mauluda. She asks, how helpful are exit tickets in your classroom, and do you always take time to use this in your class?
So I really like the exit ticket. Okay, but sometimes, let's say we didn't have enough time at the end of the class to do that. So what I do is I have a Padlet platform that is connected to my here in my university, we use Blackboard. That's where the students go to find their materials and assignments. When I worked at the high school, we used Schoology and Google platform. So the link to Padlet is, I like it so much because it's really so easy. Students don't have to create an account or anything. They just click on the link, or usually it's the word Padlet, and I link the link to it. They click on it and they go post their questions or thoughts or what they have learned based on the question that I have for them. What did you learn today? What did you didn't like? What you still need to explain? And when they go home, they can write it down. And then at the end of the day, I go check my Padlet and see what my students have responded, or there is a discussion board. So there is more than one way to do the exit ticket to check your student understanding, or they want to share something with you, and then you can plan your lesson or instructions for the next day or the following class accordingly to what the feedback that they have given you. And so you're ready to meet whatever needs that they or go over any materials that they didn't understand. So it doesn't have to be like exit ticket at the end of the class, but usually at least once a week or twice a week, I would use the exit ticket and save some time at the end of the class to use it, because students also like it. I like to use colorful sticky notes to do the exit ticket. This is just kind of like make it fun. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah, thank you so much. And there is another question from Nasiba. What are the do's and don'ts you recommend while building relationship with students?
So this is a good question, because a lot of time we need to make sure that there is we don't cross the line where students might disrespect us as teachers. Students are very smart, and they like always to test let's say the ground, how much they can go beyond or cross the lines. So this is really important to be aware as a teacher. Again, when I mentioned the way that I ask them that they can call me, is a lot of people might think it's okay to call me without saying like doctor or professor. I would say no. I would rather to add that title to my name, because we are here. Yes, I care about you. Yes, we're trying to build a fun engagement classroom, but there has to be that line where we need to respect each other. I am a good listener for you, but we need to have to keep that respect. So with the relationship, we need to make sure that I show them that I care. Like, for example, I can give you another example. Sometimes at the beginning of my class, I like to ask my students about their feelings. So I use like an emoji slide, and I ask them to come and circle what type of emoji they feel. And usually I start with myself. So one day I said that I was feeling a little bit sad, and I shared why I was sad that day. And that really was like, oh my God, our teacher is sharing with us her feelings. So they were encouraged to share their feeling. But I explained to them why I'm sharing my feelings, because sometimes when you come to the classroom and you have a feeling that is you're bored, or you're sleepy, or you're hungry, or you're sad. As a teacher, I would like to know that, because I can be aware that this student might have a certain need for that moment. So I need to keep that in my mind. To be intentionally culturally responsive. But at the same time, I'm not crossing the border where, okay, even if you're bored or sad, that doesn't mean that you can interrupt the class, or make the class that you want to, I'm trying to remember the word, I suddenly forget it, like distract, yeah, distract other students just because you don't feel well. We can figure it out, and I can help you or send you to the right place where you can get what you need and then come back to class and be ready. So this is part of how we can collaborate, care about each other, but we're not crossing the boundaries. And they know that I care about them.
Good. And there is another question from Raihuna. She asks, if you are having a lecture, how it is organized? She says, I mean, do the students have to be ready in advance to the future lecture? And if I'm not mistaken, you said you have an activity. I'm interested, what activities do you use during the lecture?
Okay, so basically, yes, usually every day before the next class, I would assign something that it builds the background knowledge that I need to get for the topic that I will be explaining the next day. So either I will share with them a video that they can watch for like 2 or 3 minutes, or I would share a picture and ask them to think about it and how it's related to a title. So when they come to the class, they have that background, they are ready and prepared to what they are going to learn. This is one thing. In the classroom also as well, I would use different activities. I might also ask them to do a think, pair, share activity at the beginning of the class. So I would pose a question, ask them a question about the topic, and then I will ask them to talk about it, or use the KWL, which is K, what you know about something, and what the W is what you are expecting to know about it. And then the last one is what you learned, and we keep it until the end of the period where they have to write what they have learned. Sometimes when it's vocabulary, I will let them look through the words at the beginning of the class, write the meaning of the word that they know, and the one that they don't know, they can just leave it until we learn it during the class. Or sometimes I might let them use the thumb up, thumb down. Like, who knows about, and I would say, what is it? Thumb up, thumb down, or in the middle. I might know about it. So it's like very short time activities that it can gives me an idea how much my student know about a topic. And now I am preparing them to get ready their minds to learn about what we're going to learn about. I use also a lot of visuals sometimes, and I ask them to guess, what does this picture or photo mean? Do they have any idea what is it about? So there is a lot of ways and activities, and I hope I answered your question.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Yes. And is there any other question? Please unmute yourself, all right, because we are running out of time. So there are some more minutes left. Please use the chance and ask your questions. Okay, yeah, people are thanking like for great webinar, yes. Yeah, that was really, really amazing webinar, Dr. Fatima Aldajani. Thank you so much for your wonderful and amazing webinar. So I hope that we have a lot of takeaways from today's session and from today's webinar. Thank you so much for your webinar and agreeing to do it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it. I enjoyed people sharing their thoughts. It was an active webinar. So
Yeah, thank you so
looking
much.
forward for our next webinar. I think I will be delivering in September. So
Okay, yeah, we will wait that.
yeah,
Thank you so
okay.
much. Yes.
Yeah, thanks
And
everyone and have a good day.
yeah, thank you so much, dear participants, for joining us. And thanks again, dear Dr. Fatima Aldajani. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.